more on preparations for the planting of Amazulu King Goodwill Zwelithini. We cross now to our reporter Jayed Leigh-Paulse, who's standing by. Thank you very much, Jayed Leigh, for joining us. Earlier you spoke to the Minister of Health. Who have you got with you now?
Well, welcome back to the Great Palace, where we've seen several dignitaries from across the country as well as across the continent come to pay their respects to the late monarch. With me right now, I am joined by the Malawi King, and that is Inkosi Yamakosi Mbelwa, fifth to the throne, just to talk about his relationship with the monarch. Inkosi, the former King Goodwill Zwelithini was a man who had several relationships with several monarchs across the country. It stemmed from Africa all the way to the UK. Can you take us through your relationship, your personal relationship with him?
Yeah, I think it all begins with we people who settled in Malawi originated from this Zulu land. So after some years, we started tracing where we came from, and the late King Inkosi Yamakosi Mbelwa number 4 had traced, and they started a relationship with the late King Zwelithini. So for me, I started following it up when the late King Inkosi Yamakosi Mbelwa 4 passed. The king here sent a delegation to be there at the funeral of my late father, who was a late king. So from there, some 2 years ago, I started following the relationship myself, building a close touch with him. That's when I came to pay him a visit. That was some 3 years ago. From there, we've been in touch over the phones and the like. So to me, I felt it would be an honor for me to come and pay my last respects here, knowing that we all came here to benefit from the wisdom that he had, knowing that he was the most reigning heir. There was a lot that we benefited from him, as witnessed by me coming here. That it shows that he had connections all over. He didn't want his people. He didn't want to disconnect from his people, because if it was somebody else, he was going to say that you people are now going to Malawi. We can no longer be related. But we are here today just as a symbol that he was a loving man. He was a father, not to the only Zulu nation, but even to us people who are in Malawi. We are spread all over in Zambia and Tanzania, which clearly shows that he was a loving father, and we are here to pay our last respect and to mourn with the family.
Now, the late king also had several relationships with many of the other African countries, and you just spoke emphatically about your father having a relationship with Goodwill Zwelithini, the king of the Zulu monarch. Take us through some of the teachings. We know that he was a man of principle, that he believed in tradition, he believed in holding on to culture and tradition. For Malawi, what teachings have you learned as a country from his teachings?
Yeah, for me, when we had the chat last time, most of his teachings were, he encouraged me to make sure that I don't lose our culture, because I think if we lose culture, then that's the end of it. There will be no traditional leadership or the traditional side of it. So he encouraged me to make sure that in whatever I do not lose on the culture. And then secondly, with the trending, in most cases you find that people who relate to our culture. Here the Zulu culture in our country, we call ourselves the Ngunis. They take us as women oppressors. He was on top, trying to guide me to say that can we abolish some of the harmful practices that are there, so that we are not seen as oppressing the women. Let's promote the women. And also, we had also spoken on education. He was very keen in terms of education. He wanted us not to relent on education, because education is everything. If our followers are not educated, then it will pose a huge problem in future for our tradition and even for us ourselves. So, and then lastly, we also spoke about the language. us migrating back to Malawi, we have ended up losing the Zulu language. We also spoke on that, on how we can strengthen and bring back our language. So we also had in program some exchange visits. He was of the view of sending some of his men back home so that maybe they can teach our people, the young ones. We enroll them in school, and then at least we can regain our language, because apparently I am here speaking English. I was not supposed to be speaking English. I was supposed to kuruma here, but unfortunately because of the settlements then we're not able to do that. So those were some of the things that he encouraged me to do, to make sure that, number one, culture, we never lose that one, because the moment we lose out on culture, then everything else is gone, because the traditional side of it, we are the ones who are supposed to be in charge of the traditional side, and education, and then women empowerment. Those are some of the key areas that we had spoken about, and also mainly empowering our people in terms of businesses and opportunities that would come in. For example, he has Ingonyama Trust, protecting the land of the people. We also have this similar problems in Malawi. There's a new land law that is there, whereby when you look at it on the other side, people are opposing, our tribe being in the forefront of opposing. So those are some of the things that we have been learning from him, and how best we can protect and secure our people.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak into the SABC. Well, that was the King of Malawi, fifth enthroned, just talking about his time with the King, late King, that is Goodwill Zwelithini, and speaking of his fond memories, but also the principles that he stood for. Also speaking about his father's relationship with the monarch and the relationship that they had, and also principles that he stood for. We do know that the king was a very staunch traditionalist. He believed that culture was imperative to hold on, to preserve, especially in the Zulu nation. He also asked many people to hang on to their roots, to never lose their culture. So speaking very emphatically about the king there. I'm just going to step out of shot and just show you what's happening here at the moment. We see more dignitaries arriving at the Great Palace, and several of those politicians also in attendance, and they will be here right up until this afternoon and possibly into the evening as well, where the king is expected to be planted tonight. And this has been occurring throughout the week. My colleague Ayanda Mhlongo has been stationed outside here, giving you rolling coverage of the people that have come to pay their respects, the various politicians who have come to see the family and pay their respects as well. We saw the EFF there, we saw several ANC members also coming, as well as the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle Zikalala. And this is all just to pay homage to the man who they revered across the province, but as well as across the country. So I'm just going to hand it back to you in studio. We're expecting the remains of the king to be brought back here, and then thereafter the proceedings will take place. We do know, as it has been stipulated in the media, that he will be planted tonight, and that will be an all-male dominated ceremony. No females in attendance. It will be in the evening. This is what the king had asked for, and had said that when his time was here, he wanted that to happen.
Thanks very much, Jayed Leigh, for that. We're going to remain in the vicinity.